Welcome, everyone, to the Apoco-Larry podcast. I'm Steve.
Larry Van Beek.
Yep, he's Larry.
Yeah, just Larry today.
No, it's never just Larry. It's always Larry.
This is a pretty straightforward passage.
Like we said before, we skipped a chapter so we could get to the great story of Gideon. So now we're in Gideon part 2, right?
Yes, and there are 3 chapters that handle Gideon. In this chapter, this is the really straightforward one of how he defeats the Midianites and the others. Remember, the Midianites are the ones that he's fighting, along with the Ammonites and Ammonites or Amorites? Ammonites, right?
I'm going to go with Ammonites.
Yeah, let's stay with Ammonites for now. And remember, that's so Midians. That's the family Moses married into,
right?
And the Ammonites were the sons of Esau. That's one of the offsprings of Esau.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's some other people with them, and they've all come to fight. And Gideon is now fighting. You remember last week we said Gideon didn't want to. I'm the least of the least. And then when he goes to tear down the Baals, the idols to Baal, he brings 10 of his servants, and we went, well, he's not that poor. It just goes to show how richness and poverty is really a mental state. Unless you're poor, then it's definitely a physical state.
Yeah, but it's all in the eye of the beholder at times, isn't it?
Once you have enough to eat and a place to stay, then after that it's in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's jump right in. For those of you playing the at-home edition, we're in Judges chapter 7. I'll start at verse 1 because that makes the most sense. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Morah. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 men left. 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained.
Yeah, so he had a fairly solid army, right? Yeah. 32,000 people. And but I imagine the first one to turn away said he was scared. That was hard. But after that, they went in droves.
Well, if he's going, well, then I'm going. Yeah.
I might as well leave as well.
Yeah, that's right. Verse 4. But the Lord said,
also, he's got 32,000 men. Now, they have more in Midian.
Right.
This Midianite army is bigger. Yeah. And they have every reason to be scared of these guys.
Yeah. The fear was not unfounded. It was founded fear. Verse 4. But the Lord said to Gideon, "There are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say, this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go." So Gideon took the men down to the water, and there the Lord told him, "Separate those who lap water with their tongues, as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink." 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. The rest got down on their knees to drink. I would kick them out too. Like, oh, seriously? Come on, get out.
Well, the part of this that threw me off is, for some reason, I thought the ones that cupped it in their hands, the 300, actually drank, because that's how I would drink water from a stream.
Yeah.
I thought the ones that stuck their face in the stream were the ones that were the dogs, but it's actually the reverse.
Yeah.
So once they had the water, they licked it.
Yeah, which seems, what? I don't get this.
I don't want those men.
They lap like dogs. Anyway, verse 7, the Lord said to Gideon, "With 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home." So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. I'm sure they were really excited to go too.
And the weird thing is, they don't talk about the fear of these 300.
Absolutely not, right? They just oh, sure, let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it. Here we got our trumpets and we got the other stuff. Let's go.
Yeah. But maybe these are God-fearing men and they get it. So who knows?
Yeah, yes. Let's go with that.
Now, midway through verse 8 here, folks. Now the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. During the night, the Lord said to Gideon, "Get up and go down against the camp, because I'm going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack the camp." So he and Purah, his servant, went down to the outposts of the camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites.
Now, Amalekites. Now, what I said, Amalekites or Amorites, and then we've settled on Amalekites, right?
We're going with
Or did I say something completely different?
We had the Ammonites in there because they were around too.
We had the Ammonites. Did we have Amalekites? Did I ever even
We didn't.
say
We didn't have Amalekites. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Amalekites were the sons of Esau.
Yeah.
I don't know who those other guys were. Oh, the
Yeah.
Amorites were the people from Canaan.
Yeah. We had many kites were here.
Yeah.
And
we were flying them in a swift breeze.
That's right. And all the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley, thick as locusts. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. Like, hoy, oy, oy.
Yeah, so that's how many there were. I mean, and sand on a seashore is a fairly common idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember Abraham was going to have children that were more plentiful than the sand of the seashore, where
Right.
you couldn't count them. Or the stars in the sky.
Or the stars in the sky, yeah.
And someone recently said there may be actually more stars in the sky than there are sand on the seashore. But that has nothing to do with anything biblical. It was just a fun.
Yeah, but we pulled that into the discussion nonetheless.
Yes, to show how scientific we are.
That's right. Sorry. Verse 13. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling his friend his dream.
Someone said, "Don't doubt the science," and we thought, no, you always doubt the science. That's what science is.
Yeah.
You always question the science. You
That's
always
right.
question the science.
Yeah. Like, hello, it's part of the method, actually.
Yeah.
I had a dream, he was saying. A round loaf of barley came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, "This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands."
I would have said, "Did you eat a bunch of pizza before you went to bed?"
Yeah, that's right. Like, seems like just a bad dream, man. But
it does sound like a bad dream. However, he did say this, and it was important because obviously Gideon was still scared.
Right.
He did go down and he did listen.
Yeah. And clearly God had gone before them in this. So it was interesting. Verse 15. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called up, "Get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars into the hands of all of them, with torches inside.
And if we want to do some very serious math, that's 100 in each company.
Yes, that's right. For those of you playing the at-home edition. "Watch me," he told them. "Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." So Gideon and the 3 men reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch. Just after.
Yeah. Now, middle watch, by the way, I couldn't place middle watch. If you're a seagoing person, I think middle watch is between 2 and 4 in the morning.
Okay.
But they said for this thing, it's probably between 10 and 2 in the morning.
Okay.
So somewhere. I thought it would be after midnight for sure, but it's hard to exactly place middle watch.
Right. Okay. At the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard, they blew their trumpets and broke the jars that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands, and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled.
Yeah. So weird little thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
But and I could picture this. I could picture the initial shock and terror when this happens. But I'm thinking that these guys are seasoned soldiers. And they might not be. They might just be, just a pile of kids from around the place that came with you to fight. But I think many of them would have been seasoned soldiers. And a seasoned soldier, that would have scared them, but only for a moment. And then they would regather their senses and their ability, and they'd be ready to fight.
Right.
But that's not what happens.
Yeah. Um, when the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The army fled to Beth. I'm not going to say it. I just,
To
yeah.
Beth shit.
Toward Zerana?
Yeah, sure. Go with that.
Sure. As far as the border of Abel Menoloa and near Tabbath. Israelites from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and seize the waters of the Jordan ahead of them as far as Beth Barah."
Yeah. So when he's chasing them out, then they're getting the rest of the guys from. So there's three other tribes or two other tribes coming in, because isn't he Manasseh himself? And Naphtali and Asher are coming in, and maybe the other side. So they are running back up through the territory, and so this is taking a bit of time. I mean, if you're gathering these other guys to come in, it's not all happening in a couple of hours.
Right.
Like this is over days, right?
Yeah, right.
That this is actually happening.
Yeah. And
But
strangely, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I'm waiting for you, Steve.
Okay. Well, don't we have other examples of this where like the other tribes would accuse somebody of like, why didn't you call us? We could have helped you. Like all this kind of stuff.
Next chapter. Yeah, in this one, in the next chapter, that happens.
Yeah. And yet here we have Gideon saying, "Hey guys, let's all get them."
Yeah. Yes. And Ephraim is going to fuss at him in the next chapter, but I think it's Ephraim. But Ephraim is one of the ones that he called to help them. And then, of course, they're going to plunder all of their stuff, which is the best part of war altogether.
Yeah.
is the plundering.
Yep. Here at the very end of 24, folks. So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they seized the waters of Jordan as far as Beth Barah. They also captured two of the Midianite leaders, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb. Yeah, it seemed appropriate. And Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. Wow. Yeah. They pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was by the Jordan.
Yes. So never think that these are cultured modern men.
No.
They are not woke.
Men of their time. They're men of their time.
They were men of their time, and to cut off the head and to bring it was very, very appropriate. And so we're a little creepy to guys like us.
Yeah.
But still appropriate for that. But the other thing that was interesting is when they broke this, the guys they actually said something different. He said, blow and shout for the Lord and for Gideon. And when they break it, they actually shouted a sword for the Lord and for Gideon.
Yeah.
So, well, they couldn't remember, it was 20 minutes ago. What did he say to shout? I don't know.
I barely even know what I've been sent to the market for.
It reminds me of Army of Darkness. Remember when he has to repeat that thing when he gets there?
Yeah.
He's like, I won't forget that. And he gets there, he just doesn't remember it at all. So, but when they do this, these seasoned soldiers actually turn on each other and then just flee. And there's no reason for it except that God chose to do this.
Yes.
And I'm certain that their people thought this had to be of God.
Yeah.
300 people don't rout an army of how many tens of thousands?
Yeah. Over a period of days now.
Yeah, over a period of days. And they are running in terror.
Yeah.
And somehow they were all terrified of Gideon anyway. Even when they were coming in, they were scared, which is just a very intriguing thing.
It really is, isn't it? Like, Gideon, who describes himself, like we said, as a nobody of nobodies.
Yeah. Like us.
Yeah.
Like us. Not you. like some of those we work with. But he was just a guy that God called, and remember the fleeces. He didn't want to do it. He laid out the fleeces, which we said Pentecostals still do today. Some still do that. If they want to know God's purpose and His voice, they'll come up with some weird thing, and if it happens, then they'll know they're supposed to do it. But I didn't blame him. Like, you're going up against the people. You were so scared that you were doing stuff in a wine press. Remember, you were doing your grain in a wine press just so that no one would catch you.
Yeah.
And now you're breaking down the Baals and you're chasing out the Midianites.
Yeah. 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 An army larger than 30-some thousand Israel, from your nation and friends that you brought along. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if those guys came back to help with the plunder. I would have.
Yeah.
I'd be there for that part of it.
Yeah. Well, now that you've got here, sure, we can help out now. Yeah.
It was my job to let you do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did my part.
But like you said, what a great story of God giving them a victory. And like he says, I want to make sure there's no way you can say anything else other than I did this for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And God said that. I don't want anybody to take credit for this but me.
Yeah.
This is something I'm going to do for you.
Yeah.
And remember, they were like the rest of us, just living their own lives and serving themselves until tragedy came. And then they cried out to God.
Yeah.
And then he said, I want to make sure you know it's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story.
It really is. How many times do we God does something for us and we go, that was great what I did there, wasn't it? No. It's great what he did there.
I remember oftentimes praying, oh God, don't let the consequences of this sinful thing that I did come upon me, But
well, it's a very honest prayer, right? Because we're all there. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so there's Gideon, and he was, for a little while, he was the man.
Yeah.
The man that God used.
Yeah. Okay, folks, we are 2/3 of the way through now. We've seen part 1 of Gideon testing the Lord, asking for a fleece. Gideon in part 2, hey, great, I'll go do what you say. I'll even do it with 300 men, no problem. Calls out his friends, let's rout them. Part 3 is not going to be as glorious for Gideon, but we'll get to that next week. My friend, thank you so much for this. That was a fantastic just journey through this 7th chapter of Judges. Folks, as always, we are so happy that you come along. We're happy to do this. Like I say all the time, if we were just doing this for ourselves, we would do it anyway, but we're so overjoyed that you get to come along with us on this as well. Tell your friends, why not, put it up on telephone poles. Sure. Make posters. I don't know. I'm making stuff up now, obviously. Anyway, until next week, I was Steve, he was Larry, and this was the Apoco-Larry podcast.